Hey guys, Scott Fishman here for Wrestling Inc. And a new installment in our One of Us series. We had Gabriel Iglesias not that long ago, so we figured we'd
Ooh,
continue the theme for
come
stand-up
on.
comedians.
A little bit of a step down. I'm so sorry.
The barsman said hi. What can I say?
I mean,
Uh,
I'm not going to clear it.
so we have Danny Jolles here, who many people would know, or maybe their girlfriends would know. CW's crazy ex-girlfriend on the CW network, and of course he has a new comedy special, which we'll also get into. But how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like, I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel of this whole Zoom in life that I've lived for the past year.
Yeah, a lot of people affected by it.
I mean, it's just been, I've been doing stand up on Zoom and meetings on Zoom, and you just sort of at a certain point, you're like, whew, a lot of Zoom time.
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing a lot of people have been, at least they're being entertained, at least when it comes to professional wrestling. So I know,
Unbelievable. Unbelievable how fast they got back.
yeah, they didn't miss a beat. The show must go on.
I mean, plenty of places did not abide by that idea. A lot of industries were immediately like and they pretty safely got right back into it and figured it out. And, through trial and error, we've watched them like figure out how to do it without a crowd, then kind of have a crowd, then fake their own, AEW faking their own crowd, basically
Yeah,
just putting their own wrestlers there and being like, it's a crowd and just figuring it out. They just figured it out.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
Necessity breeds innovation, you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So you clearly are a fan. Just tell me, how far back does your fandom go?
Oof, it's a great question. I think so. I started watching as a kid, obviously, like a little guy. WCW was what
Nice.
brought me in initially. I think it was a little more kid friendly when I was a child. And so I got very into WCW. And then I went to my first ever event was a famous one. I was at Starrcade 97.
Whoa, was that
Was my
Nashville?
first
No, that was at the MCI Center.
in
Wow.
DC. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm from Virginia.
Okay.
So I was at Starrcade 97, which was at the time, if you'd asked me at the time, I was like, oh, it went flawlessly. It was a perfect event. It was so great. And then, of course, later on in life, being like, oh my God, I was at a famous mess up, like a real botch of a situation at the end. I had no clue. Kevin Nash no showed, but you also see how good they are at like playing it off. Like Kevin Nash no showed, but I remember Scott Hall being the most impressive as a kid. Like I remember he was just so big and he was just taking bumps like crazy. It was so cool. Once you see wrestling live, I think it really like transforms your love for it.
Yeah.
So I think from that point on, I got hooked. And then I was in pretty deep, then did the classic entering college. Maybe I've grown out, end of high school, entering college. Maybe I've grown out of this thing, don't want to be a loser. I go from Virginia to NYU theater,
Right.
not as accepted. And I gave in to the peer pressure, let it go for a couple
Well,
of
by
years.
then they didn't have the Nitro parties anymore, so
Yeah, once Nitro was gone, I was like, what are we doing here? But but it was that thing of it, and then just slowly got suckered back in. And, now, and, as you become more confident in yourself as you're an adult and you're like, hey, I'm not afraid to talk about it. Started getting
What
back
was
into it
it?
and now fully back in.
What was it that got you back invested?
What did get me? I'm trying to think of what first got me back. I think I just started. What got me fully back in? I know that the Daniel Bryan run was, well, CM Punk got me kind of like, I remember sort of that whole thing happened and I was like, what's going on? This seems like a particularly incredible plot line. And then it was like Daniel Bryan, and then all of a sudden I just started paying attention. And then even more and more, like as of late, AEW, like just fully bringing me to, now watching a weekly show pretty regularly when it airs, which is unheard of. Granted, a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have nowhere to go as like I used to, but now, fully back in watching a live show every week.
Yeah. And you talk about being at Starrcade, and that was such a big moment for Sting becoming the heavyweight champion, and now you're seeing him in AEW again. I mean, what is that like for you?
I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I think anybody who watched WCW around the time, Sting was one of the best, I think, baby faces of all time, as far as being such a good guy we were all rooting for, and yet really doing so little to earn it. Like it just was defiance. That was his entire persona, and it so brought us all in. Seeing him return, first off, the way they did it, classic AEW, just a perfect. I mean, to keep a secret like that in 2021 is impossible. I
Yeah.
don't know how they kept it a secret. Did you guys know it was coming at Wrestling Inc.?
I mean, I'm sure their story. I mean, not really big in getting all insidery, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we heard little things here and there. There were little signs, but yeah, when you don't know until you actually physically see it. I mean, it was like the Paul White
Yeah,
just came out of like left field, but when you see like contracts coming up and things like that, you always think about what the possibilities might be. So
yes. Like we all knew there was Sting rumors, and I remember he left the WWE website or something like a couple weeks
well,
before.
that and he had a deal, the Mattel and all the merchandising was taken off of the WWE
Mm,
website. So little
yeah,
signs
it was
there,
like
but
I
you don't
remember
know what he's going to be doing. I mean, you don't know.
exactly, and just the way they kept it down, like
Yeah.
just that moment when he came out, I was like, it got a little pop in my living room, which
And
is
it's interesting you say being a WCW fan, because I think a lot of the things that Tony Khan kind of puts as far as his presentation and his methods and his style and things is very kind of WCW. I mean, when you look at the endings of the shows and you think, I don't know, I get those vibes. Do you also, you think?
yes, and I also think it's a little bit more. Uh, I think it's a little bit more fun
Yeah.
than WWE at the moment. WWE is, for the record, I am an AEW. I love AEW. Also a big WWE guy, and really
Right.
think, people I think are very critical of the company because it's so big and so powerful. The amount that they put out a week
Yeah.
is impossible to understand.
It's
The
crazy.
fact that they have any plot lines that make any sense is a miracle as a writing staff. I have no clue how they do it.
Yeah.
They have to do so much every single week, and still put out a great product. But AEW, I think, is more fun. And, as a musical theater guy, the Dinner Debonair is just perfect for me. I loved that. I've loved the Orange Cassidy Jericho. Orange Cassidy just in general is very fun for me. Like I like fun. In the same way that the Fiend really pops for me, because it's different. I like different. I get tired of full name versus full name, and we're both very strong guys.
Mhm. Yeah, it's good to have options, no doubt.
Yeah, I like a little character. Show me a little character.
Well, you talk about being a fan. I know you and Skylar, also just
Yes.
start. I've talked to him in the past about his fandom. I mean, tell me, do you guys hang out? Do you guys you guys go to
Oh,
shows together, or before all this? I mean, we're
we
how
sure did. We went to a Raw in like OC right before this. He was doing like a backstage bit with like Bobby Lashley,
I remember
and
that.
I
And
and I
Lana.
tagged along. I said, I'm coming. It was awesome. He has genuinely become like one of my best friends. I love the guy. And we during this time wrote a movie together, about a Hanukkah movie that we like absolutely love, and we're really hoping somebody takes a chance on. And part of our friendship was formed around wrestling, about like this kind of this love of it, and that is, us to sort of, in Hollywood, there aren't a lot of people to text about this stuff. So,
Or proudly text about it. I mean, there's a lot of ones that probably are in the fan closet. Maybe they don't want
yes,
to.
I think it's a very closeted community out here. And I think that, we're very open about it. And it's just fun. So we texted about that. That was one of the ways we sort of first became friends, was our bonding over it. And he is I mean, I think I'm a pretty big fan. I think I hold my own, but he puts me to shame. That guy, he's a real deal.
Love it. Well, how far? I mean, as far as you talk about going to WCW, the Starrcade '97. Do you remember the first time that you met a wrestler and what that kind of interaction was like?
Oof. First time I met a wrestler. That's a great question. I'm trying to think of somebody. I mean, so Dolph Ziggler is very big in the comedy world.
Right.
Like he really loves stand-up comedy, which I think is amazing. So we've crossed paths, uh, and he's awesome. In general, stand-up comics and professional wrestlers, I think we have a lot more in common than you'd think, given the fact that they're incredible, amazing humans, and I just complain. But we have a lot in common in the sense that we do a very weird job most people don't think is an actual option.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of similar as far as like nobody understands the sacrifices, nobody ever will. Like so I've always had very good interactions, even like being backstage with Skylar, with like Lashley, and we sort of, you make our way through back there and talk to a bunch of people, and all of them, it's just like, they describe issues, and it's like, oh, I get it. I get that issue. I get that problem. I get that, like, it's also, yeah. And I also think that there's a big thing in their world of people think these wild, crazy people. And, what kind of lifestyle must these guys live? In the same way that people think that about stand-ups. And the truth is, most nights we're going home or we're going to a diner. It's
Hitting
like,
up a drive-through.
yeah, like we're not living these wild lifestyles of like crazy, it's like the party era of wrestling and stand-up, I think, was the 80s and 90s, where it was really
Right.
crazy. In 2021, I think it's a pretty docile group for the most part.
Well,
We're
you
not.
mentioned being backstage. Who was the highlight of meeting? Who are you, quote, marking out for the most, you'd say?
I mean, Angle walked by, and I was like, he's just the coolest human to me, as far as just like, I mean, I think it's widely known, this isn't a unique opinion, that he's probably like the quickest rise in WWE of all time, as far as just like showing up and just immediately being like, okay, so this guy's obviously going to be a main event guy, and how quickly he built heat in it, like how quickly he was a heel in seconds. I mean, during quarantine, things have been slow, and I went through like, I think like it was like 90s. I just started like watching like a bunch of pay-per-views in a row, and watching the Kurt Angle, how quickly he goes from like this new guy, Kurt Angle, to like main eventing. It's like
Yeah,
3 pay-per-views.
it's amazing. He went from like Sean Stasiak all the way on up to Jericho, and then he went up to Triple H and The Rock.
And it doesn't even feel like unearned. It's like, and it's crazy how well he did it, where he came out just playing like, I'm going to be such a baby face, and everybody, but knowing we were going to hate him, he plays it so well. He's so earnestly annoying out of the gates. He's just incredible out of the gates. It was blown away. So he walking by was like really cool. Who else did we talk to that was like amazing? I mean, anytime you near like a Lashley or like Braun Strowman, and they're just so big, just seeing humans that big is like insane. I'm sure. I mean, you've probably been backstage a ton. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. How tall are you?
I'm pretty short, about Rey Mysterio height, maybe a little taller than Rey Mysterio.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So it's like when you see these humans, you're just like, oh my God, we're the same thing. Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to be competing. In theory, we were supposed to compete for food and like supplies. Like,
haven't.
Yeah, it's like, what are we? It's wild. It's so crazy. So the big guys are the most impressive, but then even like Becky was back there, and like, nice. It's just, it's just cool. They're also just cool. They're, I think athletes always geek me out, and professional wrestlers I include in that category. They just geek me out, and what they do is amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you were talking about you and Skylar, producing a Hanukkah movie. I mean, you talk about when you were watching with WCW, you saw Goldberg winning the the WCW Championship. Kind of what did that mean for you when it comes to like representation? And
I mean, it's crazy. And he was so weirdly, it was never a big part, but it was so understated, but there, and it means a lot. I mean, particularly in sports, us Jews have had a slight struggle. We don't tend to dominate in that world. We've got you've got the Wikipedia list, and it's there. You got our Standy Koufaxes, we've got our Mari Stoudemire's we got on board, but like, we don't have a ton. He was just so, yes, he's also like a big, just like, hey, let's go. Mm-hmm. Particularly, I grew up in Virginia. Where are you from?
I'm from Florida.
So so you probably grew up in like a pretty Jewish.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that. I know that his mother lived not too far from me, or
Of
family.
course,
South
the
Florida. When I lived in
Jewish.
South Florida, it was like
I mean, don't all Jews kind of know each? There's always a Jewish connect. There's
right, right.
always like every Jew is a
Like
connect.
Kevin
But
Bacon, right?
yeah, no, it's literally 6 degrees of Jews. It's always like, the second I meet you, I'm like, where'd you go to summer camps? Where'd you go to Bubba? There's always going to be a quick connect. We'll figure it out. But I grew up in an area without any Jews.
Hmm.
I was one of, which is weird. Usually Jews grow, we tend to live around, and I grew up around like, no, I was one of like probably 5 Jews in my entire school. And so it really meant a lot to me. It
Yeah.
really does. We tend to, uh, we don't tend to put out a lot of products that are Jewish out of Hollywood. We just sort of are Jewish here. And same with that. And he was just Jewish. It was awesome. Really, really, really big deal.
I just remember those skits he did with Jimmy Kimmel for Hanukkah.
Mm-hmm.
Those stand out to me still. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a big deal at the time, It's like, because I remember going to school. You're Jewish?
Yeah, I'd say Jewish. I'd say I'm not
Sure.
religious, but yeah.
Did you like get bar mitzvah and stuff?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't have my
Oh
big
my
moment.
gosh. We got to do something about this. Have you
Yeah,
thought about
never
doing it
too
as an
old,
adult?
right? What was that?
No, you could do it as an adult.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've seen it done before. So we'll
You got
see.
to do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I remember Passover bringing matzah to school was such a nightmare. It was like such a red flag because you could hide it. Like I wasn't something I talked about a lot in school because Jewish, you can kind of pass, It's like as long as you don't. And as a kid, like nobody knows my personality really. They can, they can't tell. Nobody knows like, oh, he complains that Jewish. Like nobody knew yet. And so, but I remember Passover. I'd be such a red flag to everybody because I'd come in with the crackers with matzah, and it was just like I hated it. I was very quiet about being Jewish. It was really cool seeing people like Goldberg and stuff. It means a lot. A lot of people out here don't know because they've only grown up in cities around other Jews, and I'm like, there's a lot of Jews where it means a lot when we see somebody coming out saying like I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
Big deal.
And you talk about, having, it's very similar in many ways. I've talked to a lot of stand-up comedians who also have said the same thing about wrestling and those two worlds colliding. We've seen so many kind of enter your game, of stand-up and spoken word and do tours and things like that. Is there anyone that you think would be good as a stand-up that we haven't seen kind of pursue it? That, you're watching and you're like, what? They'd be good.
What a great question. I mean, I think MJF right now is probably one of the funniest young talkers I've seen. I don't think he would do it. I think he is so, he's so kayfabe that I don't think he would ever do it. I'm trying to, because you got to think like, who's just a great, I bet The Miz would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, he's pretty good. He has a gift of gab, so.
He does, and he just can talk about nothing because a lot of stand-up is like just having specific viewpoints, and I think he's so good at just like, I think anybody who has had a Miz TV, Jericho say like ones where it's just like we just kick it to this guy to talk for a while. Mm-hmm. They're always so good. And by the way, Mick Foley's he's in this world, but I've heard, I have never done a show with him. I've been trying for years prior to this. I was every single club when they booked Mick Foley, I'd be like, I'm happy to open for him. I'll do it. Like, I'll just do it. I'll take less money. I just want to meet the guy. Yeah. Never got to do it for him, but I heard he's awesome.
Yeah, he's quite a storyteller. I mean, and he has all these gags that he does on the show. So hopefully when we get back to touring, that happens for you.
I think so. I think it's coming back pretty soon. I think we're getting closer, and I hope so because he's somebody I'm like, I'll take less money. I don't care.
Well, pre-pandemic, you produced the special.
Yes.
Just was it where you're at 6 different locations? Tell me kind of what it was like to kind of produce that, and just now that after all this time, you're kind of going to get to see it being released and seeing people react to it. So just talk about the project and seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, it's I don't know if they sent it to you, but there is a long wrestling joke in there. I talk about pro wrestling in the special. So let it be known there is a 5-minute chunk just on professional wrestling and my love of it. And literally, and this is kind of my style of comedy, basically yelling at a crowd that they need to appreciate professional wrestling.
Start cutting a
So let it be known. I think. Say again.
Cutting a promo, basically.
Basically, I cut a promo being like, and I stand by this point of any actor. Anytime anybody looks at me and is like, "Wow, who would have thought The Rock is a good actor?" It's like, do you know how much easier acting is for him than what that guy used to do? Do you know what an incredible step down in difficulty it is for him just to act? It's unbelievable. People do not appreciate how hard their jobs are. But what we did, so there's that in there. So for you wrestling people, let it be known, a big wrestling thing that I'm going to hopefully I'll be sending to you guys because I want wrestlers to. I think watching Randy Orton get in this fight today, or was it yesterday when he got in with Soulja Boy?
Kind of overnight, it kind of happened, kind of.
Yeah, I am hell bent that I'm hoping this is the joke that we can just pass around and be like, hey, this is. I think I pretty definitively put it as like there is no better actors on the planet. Nobody does as hard a job as these guys. Don't even talk about it. Soulja Boy, you don't know what I'm talking about. So the special is called 6 Parts. We did it at 6 different places. It's a surf shop, a gym, a art gallery, recording studio, comedy club, and a barbershop, I believe is all of them. I think I said all of them. Yes. And so, and basically, I mean, it was brutal to film. We did it right before the pandemic, not knowing what a break. And it was brutal to film. We had no money. It was me and this company called Don't Tell Comedy. And this is their model is we do shows everywhere but comedy clubs, kind of is their whole thing. And I love it. I love it because similar to wrestling in many ways, where anybody who goes to indie wrestling knows put a ring anywhere and these guys will put on a show. You know, they can do it. Stand-up comedy is the same. Give me a stage, give me a mic, we can do it. And so it was 6 different shows and it's 6 10-minute chunks. And it was brutal to film because we really only had 6 shots and we had no money. So we basically would get in there like 2 hours before showtime, light it, put in cameras. I mean, literally we'd be setting up as people came in, and we had Harper, it's my dog. And then we had 6 shots. I mean, we basically had to go 6 for 6. Like we couldn't have a bad show.
Yeah.
And we were pretty convinced it wouldn't work. I think we were kind of like, we didn't know. And it just was an incredible filming experience where like we just caught 6 amazing crowds. And, you know, it's really, I'm really, really proud of it. And I think it's really unique as a special. And then the pandemic hit, and I really wanted to put this on YouTube. And you guys know, I mean, you know, you put something behind a paywall, you just lose so many people. And I'm of the belief system that like I always want, you know, this is my first special, but I kind of always want my specials to be free and just easy to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And that business model is not loved by the people who, you know, people were very much like, what? We could sell this. We could try to do this. And I basically was very frustrated because every place that wanted to buy it was like, no, we want to try to sell it. And I was like, I don't want it anywhere. I just want it free. And then 800 Pound Gorilla came along, which is an amazing company. And they were like, you can put it on YouTube with us. And we're okay with it. And so it is now just for free on YouTube. And I'm just going to give it to the people.
So it's March 23rd, right? March
23rd. There's a chance this thing bombs real hard. But I like to think there's a chance people watch it and pass it around and hopefully find a new special they love.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Danny.
Story.
It was great talking to you, and hopefully you get that Hanukkah movie made and you get to open for Foley.
If you know any Jews out there, let them know. We're trying.
Why don't you before we go, let people know how they can find you besides the special, of course. Like
yes. So I'll do my standard plugs. So I got
go for it.
3 plugs, which is 1 at Danny Jolles on all social media. Really means a lot if you follow me. My industry is somewhat broken in this sense. A lot of value is put on that. So a follow means more than you think. And it's the easiest way to get my content. Secondly, please watch the special. It really means a lot. And if you'd like it, share it. Just incredible. Yeah, if you got it in you, it really means a lot to me. Third thing, and most importantly, stand-up comedy is very similar to professional wrestling in the sense that, and you know, Scott, feel free to back me up on this. It's good on TV, just a different experience live. You really don't know what professional wrestling is until you see it live.
No, for sure.
it's just a different game. And so I just ask everyone, don't even worry about seeing me. Look up your local comedy club and or outdoor shows in your area and go see live stand-up comedy. It is the best art form on the planet. When you see it live, it's such an in-the-room experience. Give it a chance. I promise you'll have a good time.
Yeah, and you never know, you just like an independent show, you never at a wrestling show, you never know who's going to make it big, You
And
could be like, I saw them when.
Oh, and you also don't know. I mean, we're not locked into big contracts, so it isn't like you go to a random night in LA at these clubs, you'll see, particularly on the weekend, you'll see one massive name already there. They're not locked in. There's no reason why they can't show up. And actually, and this is something I tell people a lot, when you go to a big city and you just go to a random show, the bigger the people, the more they actually don't want to advertise they're going to be there that night.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see amazing people. Going to see live stand-up comedy is just always going to be a good decision. Just do this much research, make sure you're not seeing somebody terrible, and that's it. You'll have a good time.